Analysts had indeed largely expected South Africa's economy to expand in the final quarter of 2025. And indeed, we heard from Stats SA today that it did that by 0.4% for the fourth quarter. And then for the full year, we saw the economic activity increase by 1.1% compared to the 0.5% that was recorded in 2024. But of course, to take us through the numbers, I am joined by the Statistician General, Risenga Maluleke. Thank you so much, SG, for your time this afternoon. Of course, the positive story coming out of South Africa's GDP today, 0.4% increase. I think take us through the numbers.
Nosipho, our job is to churn out numbers. And I can hear you talking of a positive story. We tell all stories, whether the numbers are positive or negative, but particularly we have seen our economy showing some resilience for about 4 quarters, 5 quarters, including the quarter that we are reporting on. From the last quarter of 2023, it has started growing in the positive, and it has gone in the positive throughout 2025. 0.4% there, 0.3% out there, 0.5% in the third quarter that we reported, but which we have revised to 0.3%. And ultimately, as of the fourth quarter, we have seen a return of 0.4%, which was largely driven by finance, which contributed about 0.3 of a percentage point. And we saw trade growing at 0.9%, contributing about 0.1 of a percentage point, followed again by personal services that grew by 0.4%, contributing 0.1 of a percentage point. Now, having said so, coming out of positive growths that we have seen throughout 2025, this returned a positive growth in our economy by 1.1%. And when you look coming out of COVID, during the COVID year, all over the world, economies went on a slump. We went negative 4.7 in a slump. We recovered again in 2021, about 5%, 2022 about 1.9%, and in 2024 we were sitting at about 0.6%. So this 1.1% does, for 2025, does show that our economy is indeed resilient and it's actually showing a recovery. Whether that 1.1 is high enough or fast enough a growth is a matter that can be left to commentators like yourself and other people to further engage and look as to whether it would address other issues out there in society.
And looking then at some of the lags or drags on the economy, we saw manufacturing was one of the industries that actually presented negative growth to the economy. Can you take us through that picture?
When you look at manufacturing, it does show, and over time, coming out of the days where we were in COVID and the times of pressures on electricity, manufacturing was struggling a bit. But now with the electricity issue having been turned around the corner, one of the things that we need to appreciate and understand is that most of the manufacturing that we see in the country is not only on non-electricity consumption components. And the electricity consumption components do show or face a bit of blackouts here and there. And that's why we see manufacturing struggling a bit. There are other components in manufacturing that rely or do not rely much on electricity. And those ones are doing very well. But others, of course, beyond manufacturing, you can see mining as well. From time to time, it will show fluctuations based on what we see on the electricity supply.
And then I think finally, SG, when we look at 2025 and the year, how it was characterized was sort of turbulent as a result of the US trade tariffs. When we look at South Africa's trade with other countries, take us through what we are seeing in terms of the numbers between exports and imports.
One of the things that we need to look at and understand when we look at trade tariffs is that it's too early to tell as to what the effect will be on our economy. The small beats here and there where we see that our exports have grown in the negative, particularly from pearls as well as precious stones and precious metals that actually contributed in the positive. However, you can see that other issues like machinery and the like struggled a bit. And when they struggled, they affected our exports, where we saw that our exports went on a slump 0.6%. But of course, our imports grew in the 0.4%. So one thing I can say is that the trade tariffs, the story is too early to tell.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, SG.
Thank you indeed, Nosipho.
All right, that was the Statistician General then for Stats SA, Risenga Maluleke, just taking us through the picture when it comes to South Africa's final quarter GDP. As I mentioned earlier, a positive story when we look at what analysts had expected, that 0.4% increase in the final quarter. Nosipho, Radebe, SABC News, Pretoria.